What's going on, everyone? It has been a couple of weeks since the launch of Season 1.5, so you know what that means. It's time for more hot takes with a tier list. Let's dive in. Alright, so we'll jump right into our tier list for today, and we are starting off with good old Captain America. He did get quite a bit of buffs with this new season. I still really don't see him very often. I feel like I see the same tanks we've been seeing: Doctor Strange, Magneto, see Thing quite a bit now, but I don't know. He's good. You know, I feel like he's around B tier. He's still good at diving. He's good at kind of protecting your backline if you more play a defensive Captain America. I think that little update to him, allowing him to shield while leaping, is phenomenal. I think that's one of the best things they could have done to his kit, because you have a lot more flexibility in actually blocking projectiles, things like that. But he's, I don't know. I don't know if people just still haven't figured him out, or he doesn't have a good teammate at the moment. But he's definitely an off tank, and while playing off tanks, there's just other better off tanks. Doctor Strange, I feel, is still S tier. I don't think he's moved. Like, in all honesty, I think he is exactly where he was. The little bit of health knocked off and the range on his burst, like, if you have good positioning, it's not hurting you at all. And I think he is still S tier. I think he's still probably the best tank for a lot of situations. And he's probably still the best solo tank next to Magneto. Groot. I think Groot is... Okay, I don't want to do this again, just because I feel like I got a lot of heat last time for putting everybody in S tier. So we're going to put Groot in A. Just because I don't think he's quite as flexible as Strange. I think Strange is just a really good kind of fit-all tank. Groot is crazy strong, especially if you see some of those top tier players play them. This is obviously going to be more of a Diamond Grandmaster opinion at the time. That's where I'm at right now. So I'm in like top 8%, top 7 at the time of this recording. But yeah, I think Groot is really, really good, especially in the right hands. I feel like I do see a lot of Groots causing a lot of grief for their own team, though, in my rank. So I think he's got a lot of capability, but I don't think he's my favorite to see. Hulk, I think, moved down a little bit. I think he's around A. I still think he's phenomenal in the right hands, but that little bit of nerf on him, and just he gets banned all the time once you get to Diamond. So as far as tier lists go and like things that you should learn to play, Hulk's great. He's really strong, but he takes a lot of skill, and you often don't get to play him anyway because he gets banned due to Iron Man and Strange getting the buff from him. So is he worth the time to learn? Not at the moment, not really at the moment, but he's still A tier. He's very, very strong. Magneto, I think I'm going to throw Magneto as the other S tier tank up here. I think these two are the best, right? Like, they are the best tanks. Shields are still just so good, even with all the diving. Obviously, they're easier to counter now with all the dives, getting buffs. But he is still ridiculously good. He hard counters a lot of things like Punisher, Iron Man. Even like Namor, you can very quickly get that ult charged and just nuke somebody. So I think with the range characters that are still strong, he counters them really well. So he'd be S tier easily. Penny, I think Penny's around B these days. I think she kinda, like, again, good in the right hands, good if you have good positioning. She's just, I don't know, like, she's not as strong as some others, and she's really just good for anti-dive. So, like, if you are playing against these S tier tanks, Strange Magneto, you're not going to see Penny because she can't do anything to Strange Magneto. So you just kind of see her as a counter pick. So I'm going to leave her in the B tier. She's really good at what she does, but she is kind of a niche pick. You really only play her if you have like a double dive against you. Or if you have like Wolverine got through the picks, things like that. So you don't see her a ton. So I'm going to give her a B tier. Thor, I think, is probably also B tier these days, because he is easily counterpicked. Thing actually does really well against him, because a lot of his kind of capability of being that dive bruiser was pushing everyone around. And so Thing being immobile and just being stuck to the ground, you don't really get to move him away from your team. So he kind of lost a lot of use with Thing seeing a lot of play. I know Thing's not exactly the best tank in the game, but he has played a lot because he's new. So Thor kind of gets shut down by him pretty often. And you typically have to kind of revert to that full-on Odin Force ranged kind of play on Thor. And at that point, you're basically playing Penny Parker. Venom, I think, is also around B. He's still really strong, but I don't know. Like, I feel like he's still kind of a tickle monster. He doesn't do a tremendous amount of damage unless you're landing every single headshot. And around Diamond and Grandmaster these days, you know, you don't have the best show of skill. Which, in turn, when everyone else, the meta right now is support ults still. The meta is still support ults. And so Venom gives a lot of support ult charge. But literally, you are a battery for your support. So, you know, I honestly, you may even be able to make kind of an argument to move him to A. Simply by the fact that you sit there and you eat so much damage while your supports just heal you that you give your, you know, meta support ults really quickly. So there is kind of an argument to move him up just because he's a sponge, but I think he's really just kind of B tier. I don't think he's that great. Black Panther, I think, is good in the right hands. I still think he's around B tier because he's kind of just used for counter picks. Panther right now, and it's crazy to say this, but I think Spider-Man is better at what he does. Panther, you know, he has a hard time killing tanks, has a hard time killing anything above 250 HP, really. If you have any kind of healing on the enemy team, you're having a hard time. That's why they call him a tickle monster. You got 2 tickle monsters back to back. But I still think he's good. I do. But he's pretty much only good against, like, Loki and just a couple of specific picks that have less defense, less mobility, or, you know, obviously Loki gives him those extra charges to keep going. So just like Moon Knight counters him, Black Panther counters Loki, and Loki does some good play. So sometimes he works out. Widow, still like a D, C, you know, just still bottom of the barrel, realistically. She's not great, unfortunately. I don't know, the changes they made to her weren't significant. What they did to her was not what she needed. I hate to say it, but Widow, like, almost needs a one-shot to be good, but we don't want to deal with that. So I need to do something with her kit to change her up. Give her a little more of that melee capability or something, just to kind of freshen her kit up. She is kind of awkward. She's really good in, you know, top 500 hands, people who lord her, people who are really good with her against flyers, you know. Very, very niche, not very good overall. Hawkeye, I think, has kind of bumped up quite a bit. They didn't really bring him back to, like, the quick charge he had, but he does charge a little better now. He has more utility with his explosive damage, which a lot of people I've learned don't even know that's a thing. Use his bomb arrows, y'all. Use them. They're good. Especially with that ult. They're crazy. You can chain all that damage together. But Hawkeye's still good, in good hands. You know, he has that ability to deflect big projectiles, things of that nature, so I think he has a lot of use right now, unless you are into this strange Magneto kind of situation, you know, that makes it hard for him. Hela, I think, is also still A tier. I think she's really, really good. I don't think she's S at this point, but I think she is still rather strong. Her drop-off is a lot better now. They brought her drop-off back up, so you can really punish things from afar, and she is hit scan, so, you know, point and click. Iron Fist, I think he's still pretty bad, to be entirely honest. What they did to his kit was, again, kind of like Black Widow, which is the other C tier character right now, not what he needed. He had the right idea to make him better at fighting tanks, but it turned out that now he has a harder time killing squishies, which is what he was good at, and he's still not that good at killing tanks. So, like, you know, if you're playing into a Groot and a Venom, or, like, you know, a Thing, just kind of big health pool tanks, he's okay, you know, but that's pretty much like a substitute Wolverine. Because Wolverine does the job better. You probably can't play Wolverine because he's auto-banned, you know, but he's still, like, he's a tank shredder, I guess, at this point, but he's not that good at it. Iron Man, probably around B tier as well. He's just kind of shut down by a lot of stuff like Hawkeye, Hela, again, since they're seeing more play. Strange and Magneto also handle him pretty well because they can block all of his stuff. But I think he's still very strong. Him having more natural damage now with that Unibeam. If you're good at that Unibeam, you can really tear stuff up. But I think it's really kind of a skill expression being able to maneuver with him and use that Unibeam. Although it is about the simplest thing on paper because you're just holding Unibeam and nuking whoever you shoot at. but I don't think he's like a tremendous character. So long as you look up, right? Magic, I think she might be S tier at the moment, honestly. I'm going to bump her to A tier because I think there's a couple characters a little higher. But Magic is very, very strong. I think that little bit of nerf they gave her was not really anything, especially now that her ult is up more often. I think she's extremely strong. She's very good against both divers and shield tanks because she doesn't care about the shield. So, yeah, I definitely pop her in A tier. I think she's fantastic at what she does. Moon Knight, I don't know, I'd probably put him around B. He has his places. He's good against Loki, because when Loki pops up, he can be a problem. But I think he's kind of just sitting there. He's just a damage dealer. He's kind of just a support ult feeder, as you would, give like Venom. But I think he's fine. I just think that he's kind of mid, Namor, S tier. Easy. Namor is like the epitome of anti-dive. So when you get these guys, you get these Venom, Hulk, Cap, like Spider-Man. Everybody has a problem with Spider-Man these days, so because people are learning how to play him. So Namor is the anti-dive guy. So he's very, very strong. Tremendous damage. You're hitting those crits. And then just like tremendous damage. You can line up all of those squids. Very, very good. Psylocke, I think, is around A. I think she is still a very skill expression heavy character. So, you don't see her in S tier because she's not just super easy to play. While these three are pretty simple to play up here in the S tier, But very, very strong. Good burst. Great ult still. Because everyone tries to leave the ult when the actual strat, and take note, is to everyone get inside of the ult, because then she'll kind of bounce around and you don't have that just guaranteed full like 700 damage ultimate on one person. Because if you leave somebody alone, even your tank's going to die in that ult. Does a lot of single target damage. That's why you want to kind of group up and give it that opportunity to bounce around and kind of, level out that damage. Scarlet Witch, I think, is probably C tier. She's not the worst. She's pretty good at fighting a lot of squishies and stuff like that. She is good, though, in a lot of cases. She's good against flyers, if you know how to use her. So she can really kind of help shut down your, like, Iron Man, Storm, if she gets through Pick Ban, things of that nature. So she's got her uses, but I don't see her very often, and I don't see her really perform super well. I have about 10 minutes on the character, so I really can't speak too heavily to her, but I don't see her perform well, hardly ever. Literally checked last night. I played a Clone Rumble game with her, and she was at 14 minutes after that game for all seasons. So I don't know anything about playing her. Spider-Man. I think Spider-Man's genuinely like A tier at this point. I think like he's really, really good at what he does. And he's really good at skill expression, diving, nuking backline supports. Because especially if you get a Venom on your team, even without Venom on the team, if you know the good one-shot combo and you can land it, you're killing those 250s in the back. They're dead. They're just insta-gibbed. It's crazy. So very good. If you play Overwatch, I fear for him because I really hope he doesn't get the Genji treatment to where there's like this high skill expression dive DPS assassin character that people at lower ranks end up getting either pub stomped, they get, they play against Smurfs, they play against, alt accounts, things like that, and they get destroyed, so you just get this overwhelming amount of complaints about how Spider-Man's too strong because they don't know how to deal with him. They won't switch to Namor, they won't switch to Penny, just like they won't switch to things that counter him. And so I fear for Spider-Man's well-being. I think I really hope he doesn't get nerfed. I hope they keep listening to kind of the higher level play because he is fine in high level, which is ironic because he's good at high level. But a pub stomp character is a pub stomp character and always has been. I think he should stay strong enough to perform with skilled players, but not shut him down to where he's just useless because some people are scared of skilled players. Squirrel Girl, I think, is like a good B. I think her ult's a lot better now, obviously, with the tracking. She serves her purpose. She has her nice just splash damage, but again, if you have a Squirrel Girl who is playing like a Moon Knight and just throwing damage out, you're just feeding support ults. You're just giving them these little trickles of damage, and their supports are on top of it, getting a lot of charge. solid B, good B tier. Star-Lord, I think, in the right hands is probably A at the moment. Very strong, very good at shredding both DPS and tanks, honestly, but he is very, very skill expression heavy. Still very good though, very Tracer. We'll continue making our Overwatch crossovers because people understand them. Storm, I think, is S tier, and not for the reasons you might think. Her damage is really good. Her ult is really good. It's her team buff that literally got improved on this past patch. That's the big part of her, is that if she gets through, and then also like a Wolverine gets through, or you have a Bucky, and they have that additional, what is it, 18% damage as a teammate just being in her vicinity, she is a problem for that reason. Because, her personal buff and her personal damage got nerfed a little bit, but she then got to kind of transfer that to her entire team. So Storm is S tier easily. She's basically a support with crazy damage, kind of like Mantis. Speaking of which, if you have Mantis Storm, it's a problem. Punisher, I think, is a good... I don't know, Punisher's weird, because he does tremendous damage, but he also does nothing to protect himself. He just has his turret and his zipline. That's about it. So he's pretty easy to shut down, but his shotgun is tremendous. It's really good against tanks. He really does shred pretty much everyone. Kind of similar to Psylocke with that shotgun, just with less mobility. I think he's a solid B just because he is your typical assault rifle shotgun character. He's, not a lot of skill expression, but generally good. And, keep this in mind, B tier does not mean bad. It doesn't even mean mid. Mid's C, because B is just like, they do what they do, and they're usually a little more niche. Winter Soldier, I think, is S tier right now. I think Winter Soldier is crazy strong in the right hands. His headshots are crazy. His ult is crazy. His mobility and crowd control, not to mention, is phenomenal. He obviously has that anti-air. He has the push. Just a lot of utility in this kit, and very, very strong if you land your shots. So, got to put Winter Soldier in S. I think these are probably like the top 3 DPS right now. Wolverine is like crazy, he's also ridiculously strong, especially if you manage to pair with Storm. I still throw him in S tier though, because it may feel overfull as usual to you guys, but he's still the best tank shredder in the game. He literally counters every single tank. I think the Thing is the only tank, and really maybe Hulk kind of deals with them okay, but he shreds tanks. It's just like, if you have a tank problem and you have a Wolverine, you no longer have a tank problem. So he's S tier for that, because he's just the best at killing tanks. Warlock, I think, is around C. Even with that damage boost they gave him, he's just a worse Mantis, because he's got that, high damage, critical hit kind of thing going on. He does burst really well, but he also just doesn't perform as high as any other healer in the game. He's the worst healer in the game, because everyone else can outperform him in pretty much all support aspects. Like his ultimate is great for what it does, but I just rarely see it work, because the animation is real slow, it's real big, it's loud, and everyone respawns at 100 health. So you get, a Star-Lord comes in there and presses E, and their entire team dies because, they're just in the vicinity. They're all short. I would almost prefer to see him... I'd prefer to see him have a float or something for mobility, but then I'd also prefer to see that ultimate just, either happen faster, give more health, respawn them where they died. I don't know. Like, there's levels to it, and there's things to change. He just needs some kind of update. Cloak and Dagger is still really strong, probably around A. Even with the ult change, I still think they're really good. Like every healer with a support ult is really strong right now. They will be for the foreseeable future. If we get anti-heals, this list may change, but this is going to be about the same until it doesn't. So yeah, I think they're Cloak and Dagger. Everybody knows what they do. They still have that capability of just dodging an entire ult for your team. Very, very strong, very good utility. Jeff is around the B tier at the moment. I think I don't know, like he has his uses. He's more of an off healer DPS, especially if you have like Luna Snow, because that like extra damage he gets is actually very, very good, as well as the slow. He's really good at team fighting. His heals are not terrible. He's just kind of awkward and an easy target. His head is massive, so if you have anybody with some aim, he can get taken out really easily. But at the same time, if you have good mobility on your Jeff, he does not get taken out easily. So I think he's B. I think he's a little niche. But I've been watching some people. I've been seeing some Jeff gameplay lately that has been very, very impressive. So I guess people are kind of learning how to use him. So he's not the worst anymore. I think Warlock is unfortunately the worst. Loki, A tier for sure, because he is really, really strong. I don't think his base healing and everything makes him just tremendously good. It's his kit that allows him to have, for one, just have the mobility to bounce around. He's got that basically invulnerable ult on a 20-second cooldown for his lamps, as they call them. The staff, the lamp, the AoE, whatever. It's basically a support ult on a small cooldown. Very, very good, especially when you have 3 clones. And his ultimate allows you to just change the flow of the gameplay at any point, because you can either copy a DPS, you can copy a healer, you can copy a tank, and you can really decide how that's going to play out. He is the best third healer in the game, for sure. If you're playing 3 supports, you should have Loki. There's no question about that. But I think he's about A, just because he does have a little bit of a skill ceiling, because you have to know how to play him, you have to have good positioning, and you have to know when to pick those ults. He just requires a lot of game knowledge to play well. And so I put him in A, because he's not, like, he is tremendously good, but he's not S tier because he is hard, right? Luna Snow, S tier. And I'll tell you why. It's because of her team up with Namor and Jeff, actually, because she makes Jeff viable. Makes Namor have another squid. He gets a 50% increase in one of his most important pieces of his kit. And her single target healing is ridiculously good. She has that stun, she has really good pressure, and her ultimate is ridiculously obnoxious. So once you combine all that together, you have a pretty solid S tier healer, because her 12-second ultimate still comes up every 30 seconds. It's just, the downtime is basically nothing still. I don't know if they need to actually just nerf ult charge rate instead of the total needed. This, because I feel like regardless of what happens, if she has a tank to heal every big fight, she's putting on a show. Mantis, I think, is the other S tier, in my opinion. I think she is the other best support because of the fact that she keeps up in healing pretty well with everyone else, but she also does tremendous damage if you can aim. Which, mind you, I did just say Loki's only A tier because of the skill ceiling, but Mantis is tremendously strong when landing headshots. She's basically the Kiriko of this game, to where her, critical multiplier is nuts. She can, 2-tap supports pretty much if you hit them in the head. So very, very good. Basically an offhand DPS, but also heals a pretty significant amount and has that nice support ult in tandem. Rocket, I'm going to give an A. I still think he is probably... You know what? Yeah, screw it. We're doing the hot take today. Mantis is getting A. Our other healer is Rocket. Because Rocket is just a heal bot. And so, if you have all of these players, especially, and listen to me, this is why I'm making a tier list that is kind of more towards my tier. I am top 10, 8% Diamond Grandmaster, right? I think Rocket is phenomenal because people can't kill him, for one, and they just keep shooting tanks. They've not learned how to get past tanks yet in my rank. So Rocket is crazy good because he is a heal bot, and they can't just stop shooting the tank that is infinitely healed by Rocket and the secondary healer, or third if you're having a bad game. So Rocket, I think, is S tier. I think his damage buff is actually tremendous, and I love being just a contrarian about it because everyone's like, oh, well, if you're sacrificing a support ult, you're throwing your game. I don't think that's true. I think if your team has good synergy and you can really utilize a damage buff, especially with something like a Storm on your team, more damage will get through more healing. And actually, like, if the damage outdoes the healing, it outdoes the healing, and you can kill things. So, like, as long as it's not a Luna, you usually can just nuke things through the support ults. So I think Rocket is the other S tier, and I'm going to stick to that. Otherwise, we've got the Fantastic Four. I guess this tier list put them in last because they had been updating just as the game progressed. Mr. Fantastic, I think, is unfortunately around a B tier at the moment. I don't think he is as strong as he was. I'm not exactly certain of what switched around in the meta play, but he feels like he's fallen off a little bit. Maybe it's because people really know how to read him now. Pun intended. The problem he has is that he is very, very readable. I have to stop. God, I'm sorry. But, he's very obvious. He has his little tall stance that deflects, that he's going to use it either when there's a lot of fire coming in or when he is low health. He's going to try to weave that into getting his big mode, and so you usually will know when to back off. He's just kind of obvious unless you... No. Chat said breedable. No, readable. Read. R-E-E-D. Anyway, he's just kind of an obvious character. If you know how to play him, you can play against him super well. So I think he's trying to drop to B tier because his stats are not strong enough to just get through his obviousness. Invisible Woman. Actually, probably I'm gonna put her S tier too. We're gonna overload our S tier. We got 4 DPS and 3 supports again. Too many S tiers. But she is top tier. She is tremendously good. She has crazy, crazy good burst healing. Her utility is absurd. She has that push in the pool, which affects everyone but the thing and knocks them 50 yards back. It's crazy. But also, her ultimate is really, really strong because not only is it a very, very strong healer ult, it also makes your team invisible and makes the enemy team invisible to their healers and so on and so forth. It's just a tremendously good defense ult. And I think she's hard to pin down because she has her shield. The shield is probably the best part of her kit. Just 300 health, 10-second cooldown when it's dead. Just ridiculously good. Heals in an AoE. So Invisible Woman is probably I don't know. I won't say the best support, but her kit makes her very, very strong. Human Torch, I really don't see hardly at all. I think he's probably in the B tier, to be entirely honest. I think he also just kind of does a lot of damage. He gives kind of the Moon Knight vibes of just constantly throwing damage out. And sometimes that's good. You can overwhelm people, especially if you can pin down a support. But usually you need someone else to do the pin down for you. So then you are relying on your team to do something so that you can be an effective DPS. That is often the case, but I feel like these heavy damage dealer just, Punisher, Moon Knight, Human Torch, they require someone else kind of distracting another healer or something so they can do enough damage to get through without just feeding the healing ult. So, B tier, not terrible. I think he's fine. I think people will kind of learn his utility a little more. But right now he's basically just another Iron Man. He's just in the sky throwing stuff at you constantly. And that's a problem for some people. I don't think it's a problem for most. Thing, I'm actually going to put an A tier. I don't think he's the best tank, but what he does extremely well. He has really good damage, really good AoEs. You just constantly click your right click or your left trigger, depending on your platform. But Thing has really good sustainability with his, self-shielding. He gives 50 bonus health every time you charge that punch. So you're just constantly getting a little extra health. So it's really easy to kind of bait out attacks because people think they'll have you. And then you can do that, pop your charge and you have another 150, you have like all this extra bonus health constantly, like Thor does. So very fun if you can do some bonus health management. Very fun character, very, very good against things like Magic, Psylocke, Spider-Man, very good anti-dive. He is very effective at diving, right? But he's also a very big target just running at people. So really, I think he's a really good defensive tank in the sense that defensive while being better on offense, if that makes any sense. He's very good at domination, very good at playing offense while protecting your backline while pushing. Because he can put out that anti-movement field, and really you just have, Magic is a sitting duck. She dives in on your support, you hit them with the slam, they can't move for like a second and a half, and you can just burst them down. They're stuck in your back line. Very, very good. And he's just fun to play. It's like collaborative time's the best time every time. And that's about all I have to say about the current state of the game. I think, some of these are definitely, you can always make arguments to bump them down or up a tier a little bit, but I think this is pretty solid. Like, I literally mained Thor all of Season 0 and a lot of Season 1. I still think he's probably A for me. But end of the day, I think this is about right. You could probably, knock a couple of these down to like D tier, in all honesty. But and some people would probably put Mr. Fantastic down here. But end of the day, I'm gonna put Widow there so we have a nice rounded out tier list for us here. Yeah, that's about it for my hot takes for this video and for this tier list. So check it out. Tell me what you think in the comments, and we will wrap this up.